How you doing? Been more busy this week than, and I've been really, really busy. I'm surprised I've not made a video about this, and this is actually incredibly important. I don't know to title this video Priests of Lies, or I'll make a decision on that. I got like 3 titles in my head, and it's actually really important. And if I could have had like one of about a dozen videos in my life when I was younger to watch, to keep me, I was never on the wrong track, you know, not that kind of wrong track, you know, doing things or, you know, drinking or whatever. I didn't do any kind of wrong tracks kind of stuff like that. Just, you know, things to steer away from. And I've actually always known that. I had either contempt for or absolutely no respect for any of the teachers that I had, and I thrived intellectually, not because of them, but in spite, you know, despite them. And I'm very, very proud of that fact. I never was bad to any teacher like kids are today, and I got a great story from a person that I know about that here in a second, but I just, you know, just had no respect for them. I knew that they didn't actually know anything, and that, of course, is the truth. I want to go down fundamentally. There's more than 5, but fundamentally, 5 people that establish themselves as authorities, or what I call priests of lies. And these are establishment figureheads that are meant to block the way towards true understanding. And this is the thing that everybody, young or old, actually should learn. And I've actually not made a video about this specifically, and it's incredibly important. I'm not interested, by the way, in religion at all, and this is just aspect number 1, because religion is secularized metaphysics. And people say, what do you mean by secularized metaphysics? It's kind of like a cacophony or a mirage of true insight, because spirituality and metaphysics is one thing, religion is another. And there are countless religions and entities that actually set themselves up to take advantage. There's rituals and there's secrets, like you have to some entities, I'm not going to name names, you literally have to donate X amount of money to reach the secret of secrets, which is completely ridiculous. Anybody that actually has respect for his fellow man would never do that. The great secrets of metaphysics are only secrets because they are occluded by insight due to lack of wisdom. I mean, they're not secrets at all. It's just that people lack the ability and clarity of vision to be able to see things as they truly are and the simplicity of what nature is. Anyway, churches and tithings and the rituals, and of course this is secularized and institutionalized offsprings of metaphysics, and you have people that you know, will put on fancy clothing and frocks and Maria Patri and Filii and Spiritus Sancti. There's actually one of the movies that I recommend people watch, by the way. I think it was Ralph Fiennes. It was a 2001 movie, I believe. It's called Luther. It was actually commissioned for by the Lutheran Church. Of course, there's another history, a true history of Martin Luther, but that's not the importance of watching the video. I think it's 2001. It's just called Luther. You can look it up. It's about the establishment of Lutheranism and Martin Luther himself, and he saw through, and it's a great movie everybody should see. It doesn't matter if you're a Catholic or a Christian. It's about the metaphysics and thinking clearly, and you know, these barriers that are put up by institutions, which, you know, churches and the priests that actually one of the characters in there is a person that actually lived, I forget his name, but he'd actually go around back in the Middle Ages during the time of Martin Luther, and he would fearmonger, you know, the less than super intelligent local people. Like, you know, you'd put in and drop in a coin or two in a box. You'd get a piece of paper, you know, get grandmother out of you know, out of Hades. And the Catholic Church themselves actually use this guy kind of like a used car salesman, and he'd just take advantage of all, you know, the simple folk. And he'd put on a display of, like, you know, people that are in Hades. But if you only drop a few gold coins, in the box, we'll give you a piece of paper that's saying that, your relatives who are probably in Hades, fear-mongering the people, will be able to get out of Hades. And I forget this person's name, but that was actually a historical person that lived, and he's basically a used car salesman for the church. And you go around fear-mongering people. Martin Luther saw this in countless other things like holy relics, and people would pay money to see them or get close to them, and this sort of materialistic, and it's not iconography or spiritual materialism, which is a type of spiritual materialism. It's completely corrupt, and he saw that. And it's a great movie to watch, and these are the literal priests that actually spread, and I'm not pointing out any particular faith or belief, because what people believe in is absolutely none of my concern. Anybody that actually tries to get somebody to change their beliefs is by definition either extremely ignorant and or also evil, and I would never do that. What people believe is absolutely none of my concern, but that's just aspect number one. And this is in no particular order. Going on to number two that I've had a great deal of lack of respect for is the academia. I've been in college many years, University of Kentucky, and then photography college. It was DBCC down in Daytona Beach, and actually I lived in the library. I sought out the best sources in the university library, which University of Kentucky has got a really, really good one actually. But I never had any respect for these academicians. These people would actually work really hard to get tenure so they could basically, sit on their backsides and do nothing. But they've created a higher echelon of the public school system, but it's still about passing tests. I mean, iatrogenic or doctor-induced whoopsies of people's lives is the second after cancer. People have all this respect for doctors, and I actually have a really good doctor that is now a farmer living in southern Kentucky. I mean, I know there are good doctors out there, but I mean, these people, all they do is take a lot of caffeine, and they study a lot, and they learn to memorize, but I mean, most doctors are not good doctors. Academia spits out a lot of pseudo-intellectuals, actually an enormous amount of pseudo-intellectuals. You're paying an enormous amount of money for something that if you actually had the will and the wherewithal to understand and learn, you could go like I did to university library, and you have to have a tool of discernment in these libraries to find out the gold from the trash, and there's an awful lot of trash in university library. Most people will read most of a book or all of a book before they can determine that book was no good. It takes me about, at most, 30 seconds, usually less, to know if the book is any good. I mean, I'm literally that fast. I peruse through it. It's like, this is a good book. I could just read some of the sentence structure, the notes in the bottom, if any at all. I know very, very quickly, and that's a tool of discernment that no one is taught about, because books used to be rare. Now everybody and their brother has printed a book or two, and of course 99.9% of the books out there are no good, and life is short. And time management is incredibly important. Anyway, academia has produced the largest puppy mill of pseudo-intellectuals this earth has ever seen. I mean, all the stuff that's actually going on now in these colleges is absolutely heinous. It is actually a place for bilking, doughy-eyed people that are looking for degrees. Like, I got a degree in underwater basket weaving. Well, that's nice, How is it applicable or useful in the real world? Well, it's not. I got $130,000 of student debt, and they get so angry because they realize their degree is absolutely worth nothing. They learned nothing. They certainly learned nothing about nature, and they learned nothing that people want in the real world. And it's actually great, and yes, I've seen South Park before. There's a great new South Park once called the Pandaverse, and all the people that get super rich are the handymen, like illiterate, toothless handymen that go various places and fix things and build things for all these people with PhD and various degrees. Like, they don't know how to fix their kitchen oven, they don't know how to build anything. So all the all these illiterate handymen literally become billionaires because everybody out there that is a pseudo-intellectual, that is the the ejecta, which is quite accurate. The ejecta of academia doesn't know how to do anything. They don't know how the world works. They don't know how to fix anything. They don't know how to build anything. It's actually really, really funny. Everybody's kind of talking about that new thing from South Park called the Panderverse. I strongly suggest you to watch it. Getting on to school systems and teachers, which I've kind of talked about endlessly. By the way, my friend Eva, I'm only going to mention her first name. She's a teacher out in Fresno, California. She recently, and I was showing people pictures of it, she was in a Chinese restaurant and eating, and some bad people came in, they begged for money, and then they threw water in their face, and then they actually swiped their food that was in the little styrofoam doggy containers. That's really bad. Anyway, she wants to get out of California. She's such a sweet lady. Got great deal of admiration for her. I've never met her. But she needs the money, so she's going back to school to teach, because she's been teaching for I don't know how long, but a really long time. And I don't know how long she was back at school, and this is in Fresno, that she had to quit because the kids were bad-mouthing her. I won't say the things that the kids said to her, the teacher, and they were throwing things at her, and they're just creating a complete, an absolute chaotic disaster, in school, because everything has gone absolutely south in the public school system. What non-existent respect I had for public schools ages ago is now absolutely less than zero. It's not even zero, it's actually less than zero. Indoctrination, testing, busy work, the actual public school system that was created not to teach you how to learn and discern things, which is what a true education would be, like the study of Aristotle and Plato, which is what a classical real education has been for many, many, many hundreds of years. Like if you were to get a real education, you would study logic and Aristotle and fallacies, and man, you knew how to think. A real education is always about not memorization, not regurgitating garbage that you read. And there's a lot of people out there. I've seen some people that will just parrot the same stuff that academia told them to believe in. And you could literally, they've got a face in video like this. You could hear the wind whistling between their ears. A real education is building a toolbox of discernment and deciphering and retroduction, not memorization, not busy work. None of that stuff is an education. It's about discernment and be able to just, that's no good. This person is making a bunch of baseless claims, and therefore their position is invalid because there's neither logic nor evidence or substantiation behind what they say. Who thinks like that anymore? Well, nobody thinks like that anymore because nobody gets an education. Doesn't matter how many years of college you got. College does nothing but spit out pseudo-intellectuals. So you have this huge system of these priests of not only the school system but also too of academia, and certainly so of priests in literal churches. So here you got three strata of the priestly set of lies, and they consider themselves priests. Some literally call themselves priests, but they're priests in different echelons of our society. Teachers, academia. Well, I have a PhD. How dare you contradict me? I got an advanced degree in this. Like, yeah, sure you did. But nothing you say is logical, makes any sense. I've been talking about this regarding so-called science or quantum, i.e. relativity, for years now. Go on to the priests of quantum, and there are priests of quantum. I don't want to mention any of their names, but this idea that is antithetical and a travesty against nature, particle fantasies and this atomistic, and these people write books and people read this trash and they've never once asked themselves the question, is this a travesty against nature? I mean, there's no way nature could work like this. They have no evidence for these ridiculous claims, and it's reductio ad absurdum. Go look that up. Ideas about virtual photons, the speed of light, and the idea that there are photons and electrons. That's completely ridiculous. When I used to talk about this ages ago, people say, well, how could you dare deny electrons? I said, well, I'm not. I'm actually parroting what Nikola Tesla said, James Clerk Maxwell, Oliver Heaviside, Eric Dollard. There is no such thing as a charge-carrying particle. I mean, you can contradict that in a heartbeat with wireless power induction. When you're a hammer, everything's a nail. When you're an atomist, everything, of course, is a particle. It is materialism. It is actually a structure built around mathematics. There is no math in nature. There are ratios, which are harmonies, and there is a logos, which is a fractal multiplicative of the 1, because phi is to 1 as 1 is to phi. When we actually talk about phi, which is the golden ratio or the golden section, and nobody understands it, so, well, what does this actually mean? It means, well, phi is a multiplicative of the 1. It's a multiplicative manifestation of that which is most divine and good, and this is why everybody, including nature, sees it as divine. It's like, oh, so there is no math in nature, and that is a really bold statement, but there is no math in nature, because once again, humorously, Mother Nature is a hairy armpit chick. She doesn't do math, and she doesn't do calculus. You know, there is a metaphysical arithmetic, which are ratios and a logos of the 1, but that's not math. But these people write these convoluted books of garbage and trash when everything in nature is simplex pressure mediation. But you have these priests, and they are priests, and they're priests of lies. Well, I have a PhD in particle physics. Yeah, there's the same guy that thinks that virtual photons exist, for which there's absolutely zero evidence, there's never been any evidence for, is an imaginary intellectual unicorn or dragon of these mathematicians. Well, they help the equations balance out. These are mathematicians. They're not actual scientists. They are priests of lies of this belief system, and it is a belief system called quantum. And believe it or not, the fat tattooed bald monkey making this video, i.e. me, actually I do know what the word quantum means, das Lichtwand. It's a measure, and a measure is not a thing. You know, an inch, a mile, a kilogram, a meter, these are all measures, but a measure is not a thing at all. Neither is time. Time is also a measure. You know, seconds, minutes, miles, grams, ounces, meters, all of these things are measures, and a measure is never, has never, not a thing. It is not a thing at all. But they quantify these things, and of course this is where you get mathematics, because to a mathematician the fundamental belief system is that you must be able to count it, or it doesn't exist, and it's certainly not important at all. Space and time, reification of space, and space is a negative image of pure potential, and time is only a measure thereof of masses and magnitudes. So this travesty of particle fantasies, mathematics, and convoluted Jabberwocky nonsense. You know, the Jabberwocky poem, it's a poem of nonsense. I told anybody, and this is true, take up any book on any subject. I don't have a book laying immediately around me. You just pick it up, and every fourth word stick in the word quantum. You know, the something of the quantum interaction is a quantum This, of course, is the realm of the priests of lies. Well, how dare you have a PhD in particle physics? I mean, nothing you said is logical, sensible. It is a travesty against nature. It breaks Occam's razor fundamentally over and over and over and over again. Yet this is the stuff that people fall victim to, because intellectually people, unfortunately, are extremely weak. I mean, they just are. People are not taught how to discern, you know, nonsense from what is simple and natural. And nature is simple and natural. And there's no, you know, people think I came up with the idea that there's no such thing as photons. I didn't come up with that, or that electrons don't exist. It's an abstraction. There is no such thing as an electron or a photon. This is a misapprehension of a specific field modality. You know, it's the idea that the flow of power, electricity, is the flow of electrons is ridiculous. You can contradict that instantly by asking people about wireless power induction. They say, well, it's lines of force in the case of wireless power induction. What do you mean? Lines of what? You know, a line of what? You know, if I grab a pen here and I make a line, I mean, that's a line on a piece of paper. It's made out of ink, which has a few chemicals in it, but a line is not a thing. You know, lines of force. There's no such thing as force. That's like saying there's such a thing as happiness. Like, well, sure, happiness, yeah, somebody is happy. It's an attribute of something else, but there is no such thing as force or waves, and these are the things that don't exist at all. But these priests of lies make up this nonsense, and they fill their books full of it, and they try to improve. I have a PhD in Jabberwocky. We're going to talk about the quantum photons of quantum induction, and it's just, they reify space and time and virtual photons which don't exist, and they extrapolate nonsense out of reification of coaxial field compression, and then call it a photon, and all of this is just absolutely nonsense. So this is a great little a cabal of priests of a different genre that lie to people, and as long as you're unintelligent enough, you'll certainly fall for it, and a lot of people do fall for it. Getting on to number 4 of priests, and these, of course, is the government, any government. Some are certainly better than others, but I mean, the taxes, you know, the Federal Reserve is not federal, and it turns out that the IRS, if you actually boil down all the nonsense around the IRS serves to feed the Fed. Everybody kind of thinks their taxes go to various nonsenses, and they don't. All U.S. taxpayer money actually goes just to pay off the yearly interest off the national debt. People think, oh, my taxes have gone to so-and-so country. Your taxes actually are not going there. The money that's going to those places is spontaneously generated, not printed. They don't need to print paper money anymore. It's spontaneously generated by the Fed. That's not my opinion or feeling or belief. It's a fact. Anyway, we have these priests. All these government buildings are very, very ugly structures. There's actually a name. It's called brutalist architecture. I think it's called brutalist architecture. When you actually look at it, it's designed to inspire, oh God, I better be afraid. Every IRS building in the United States, it looks like a prison. The people that work there, I mean, feel like prison. I've never heard of somebody that was happy at working in an IRS building. And I know a few, actually, including my ex-tax guy. He worked for the IRS for 40 years. I miss him. He was a great guy because he knew all the ins and outs of that cabal of lies. That's why the best tax guys used to work for the IRS, because they know all the lies and the nonsense generated by that entity. Anyway, you know, they oppress everybody. We're living on a human farm, and the fear-mongering that these people put out is absolutely ridiculous. I was actually at a retail store I used to work at, and some federal agents were there going over all the books, and they were, you know, pressing their will against the shop owner at a place I used to work. The guy I worked for retired. His son was running the place, and you know, they're just there to remind you that they are the priests of the GOVT, and they're here to scare you to the best of their ability and to oppress you. I won't name that 3-letter agency that was there, but they were there. There's 3 of them. If you treated your children the way that the government treats you and me, they take your kids away from you. It's all about divide and conquer. You know, they want to treat you and me like mushrooms. I don't know if you know how you treat a mushroom to get them to grow, but you feed them poo and you keep them in the dark. Let me repeat that. Treat them like mushrooms. Feed them poo and keep them in the dark. And that's how they treat me, and that's how they treat you. It's designed to keep these priests in power. The one thing that these religions and academia and the school system with all its stratified unions, which union is just you think union is a French word that means socialism. Let me repeat that. The word union. I'm a union member. Unions is a French word. Maybe it's a German word. It means socialism. And that's exactly what it is. Designed to keep these people in power. Designed to tap you and me like a maple tree. Yeah, you know, Canada, they tap the maple trees and they drip out the maple syrup to make the maple syrup with. Tapping us for degrees and taxes and tithings. You know, most of your property taxes, including mine, goes towards the public education system. Yes, I said education. And it's not an education system at all. They're not educating anybody. They're indoctrinating and brainwashing. They're literally bleaching the creativity out of you and me. They don't educate anybody. But it does perfect. They create someone just smart enough to work an assembly line. It makes just enough money to be bled dry by the IRS and the government, so the government can fearmonger you. You know, what little you have left, you know, you're psychologically oppressed by genuine so-called priests wearing fancy robes that want you to donate the tithe. Like, it's afterlife insurance. Yeah, you have life insurance, and then religion, of course, is afterlife insurance. And then, of course, you got to be fearmongered by the government. You know, pay your taxes. And, you know, the greatest crime committed on the United States of America is the creation of the IRS. The IRS lives to do one thing, that's to be the footstool of the Federal Reserve, which is not federal at all. It's a private bank. So the one thing that you should learn, which will make you more sovereign, is to extract yourself from all these evil things in life. Learning about fallacies, learning about induction, learning about creative thinking and making it part of your life. Retroduction. Nature is not a travesty. It is simplex and it is divine. But all of these priests that are about one thing, keeping themselves in power, keeping you oppressed, and keeping them in the money, they are designed to keep you down. It's religious priests, academic priests, the priests of science and quantum and relativity. It's all one and the same thing. It's an atomistic priestly class. And then the priestly class of the government. Taxes, the fear-mongering, you know, just keeping you in fear, keeping you tapped. You have just enough money to barely stay alive. But if you make more than that, then you need to hand it over to the government. Yeah. So they want to treat you and me like mushrooms, and they're running a people farm. You can extract yourself greatly from all of this, but you have to have a different toolbox in your head, not one of indoctrination and memorization, but one of true understanding of fallacies, induction, creative thinking, a genuine toolbox. Instead of a filing cabinet full of just enough information, you know, to teach you how to drive and work an assembly line, which is all the public education system does, which doesn't educate you at all. You're supposed to have a toolbox in your head, okay? Not a filing cabinet. When this happens, you do X. When that happens, you're supposed to believe that. You know, that's what the public school system does. It's about brainwashing people, putting a filing cabinet inside your head rather than a toolbox. And that's what a real education is, a toolbox. You know, you got like about half a dozen tools in there, you know, hammers and pliers and screwdrivers, so you can discern things. You can see through nonsense. You could see that these priests are like the emperor with no clothes. Anyway, maybe I've spoken too much on this subject. I could speak endlessly about it. If you ever want to contact me, my information is in the link below in the description. Any donation is always warmly welcome. Lux Veritas. Have a lovely week.